So, let's talk about Russia, and a family called the Romanovs. These guys weren't always running the show. Nah, they started out as nobles. Boyars, they called them. Think fancy lords, but with more fur. And probably way more serious faces. This was a long time ago. Before they were czars, life was messy. Russia had this period, right? Called the Time of Troubles. Sounds like a bad reality TV season. Everyone was fighting for power. It was chaotic, like Black Friday, but for a throne. The country needed someone to step up, someone to calm things down, you know? Then in 1613, boom, Michael Romanov gets the gig. He becomes the Tsar. First Romanov Tsar, a big deal. Why him? Well, he was connected, and maybe people were just tired of all the drama. He was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. So, the Romanov dynasty begins. And man, did it last. 300 years, people. 300 years. That's longer than most phone contracts. They turned Russia into a massive empire, stretching across like 2 continents. Talk about a family business that scaled up. Alright, fast forward a bit. We get to Tsar Nicholas II. This is our main guy for this story. History paints him as, well, let's just say he wasn't winning Tsar of the Year. He was a family man, loved his kids. Great, but running an empire? That's a different skill set, my friend. Nicky, as some called him, wasn't really prepped. He even said it himself. I am not prepared to be a Tsar. Dude, that's not what you want to hear. From the guy in charge of everything. It's like your pilot saying, I've never flown this thing. He preferred chillin' with his family. Not exactly a command and control vibe. Plus, he was an autocrat. Believed he was chosen by God. Divine right and all that jazz. Which means he wasn't big on listening, to the people I mean. No suggestion box in the Winter Palace. He was kinda stuck in the past, while Russia was trying to move forward. And his reign started with some bad omens, like really bad. The Kudinka tragedy, a stampede at his coronation. Hundreds died. Not a great start. Then the Russo-Japanese War. Russia lost. To Japan. People were like, wait, what? His approval ratings? Probably in the basement. So, things weren't exactly peachy. Underneath all that gold and glitter, the regular folks were struggling. Peasants wanted land, you know? Workers in cities faced awful conditions. Long hours, low pay, dangerous jobs. Basically a recipe for discontent. The vibe was getting tense. Real tense. Then came Bloody Sunday, 1905. Sounds dramatic, and it was. Peaceful protesters led by a priest. They marched to the Winter Palace, hoping to ask the Tsar for help. What did they get? Bullets. Soldiers fired on the crowd. Yeah, that didn't go over well, at all. That sparked the 1905 revolution. People were furious, understandably. Strikes and uprisings across the country. Nicky was kind of forced to do something. He issued the October Manifesto, promised civil liberties, a constitution, and created a parliament, the Duma. Looked like progress, maybe. But here's the catch, right? The Duma? Mostly for show. Like that one friend who says they'll help you move. But then, only carries a lamp. Nicholas II still held the real power. He could dissolve the Duma whenever. And he did, like, multiple times. So, the changes weren't really changing much. Then boom, World War I hits. Russia jumps in, all patriotic at first. For the Tsar, for the motherland, flags waving, bands playing, everyone thought it'd be over quick. Spoiler, it wasn't. Not even close. This war was a whole different beast. Russia suffered massive losses, millions of soldiers killed or wounded, the army was poorly equipped. Back home, things got even worse. Food shortages because, well, farmers were fighting. The economy basically face-planted. People were cold, hungry, and angry. Hangry doesn't even begin to cover it. And in the middle of all this chaos, enter Grigory Rasputin, the mad monk, they called him. A mystic, a healer, a bit of a creep. He got super close to the Tsarina Alexandra. Why? Their son Alexei had hemophilia, a serious bleeding disorder. Rasputin seemed to be able to help him. So Alexandra trusted Rasputin, big time. And while Nicky was at the war front, Rasputin started influencing government stuff, getting his buddies into high positions. Scandals were popping up everywhere. It made the royals look terrible. Like they were being controlled by this weird dude. The public was not amused, let me tell you. By 1917, Russia was a powder keg, and the fuse was super short. February Revolution kicks off. It was March by our calendar, confusing, I know. It started with women protesting bread prices, then workers went on strike, then more people joined in. The whole thing just snowballed. St. Petersburg, then called Petrograd, was wild. The soldiers, get this, were ordered to shoot to stop the protests, but many of them were like, nah, we're done with this. They joined the protesters instead. That was the game changer, really. Nicholas II, who was away at army headquarters, he tried to get back, but it was too late. His generals and advisors told him, dude, you gotta go. So, Nicholas II abdicated the throne on March 15, 1917. Just like that, 300 years of Romanov rule, poof, gone, over. Imagine that family group chat. Awkward. A provisional government took over, but this new government wasn't exactly strong. It was a bit wobbly, like a newborn deer. They made a big mistake too. They kept Russia in World War I. The people were like, are you serious? Meanwhile, another group was getting popular. The Bolsheviks, led by this guy Lenin. Their slogan, peace, land, bread, super catchy. And they delivered on the revolution part in October. So what happened to Nicky and his family? After he abdicated, they were under house arrest. First at their palace, Tsarskoye Selo. Sounds fancy, but it was basically a gilded cage. They gardened, read, tried to live normally. As normal as you can when you've just lost an empire. And your country is in total upheaval. Not exactly a chill retirement plan. They hoped for exile, maybe to Britain. King George V was Nicky's cousin after all. But politics, you know, it's complicated. Other European royals were kinda like, maybe not right now, a bit messy. So the Romanovs were moved, further away to Tobolsk in Siberia. Things were getting more serious, less comfy. Then the Bolsheviks fully took power. Civil war broke out in Russia. Reds, Bolsheviks, versus whites, anti-Bolsheviks. The Romanovs became valuable prisoners, or dangerous symbols, depending on your view. They were moved again to Yekaterinburg, to a place called the Ipatiev House, the House of Special Purpose, ominous. And then, the tragic end. In the early hours of July 17, 1918, the entire family, Nicholas, Alexandra, their 5 children, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and young Alexei, plus a few loyal servants. They were all executed by a Bolshevik firing squad in a basement room, brutal, no escape, no last-minute rescue, just an end. So, why does this story still grab us? It's been over 100 years, right? Well, first, it's the end of a massive era. The fall of the Romanovs wasn't just a family drama, it was the collapse of the Russian Empire. It changed Russia and the world forever, led to the rise of the Soviet Union. That's a pretty big deal, historically speaking. Their story is also a huge warning sign about what happens when leaders are out of touch, when they don't listen to their people. Autocracy, where one person has all the power, it can look strong, but it can also be super brittle. Nicholas II learned that the hard way. Too little, too late, as they say. A tough lesson for any leader, any time. And then there's the human tragedy, the mystery that surrounded them for so long, especially Anastasia. Was she alive? So many imposters, so many stories. It was like a global game of where's Anastasia, until their remains were found and identified using DNA like a historical CSI episode. It brought some closure, but the fascination remains. Ultimately, the Romanovs' downfall reminds us that history can turn on a dime, that huge changes can happen fast, and the voices of ordinary people matter. When enough people say enough is enough, things change, drastically. It's a story of power, revolution, and loss. And that, my friends, is always relevant.